Hello, buenos dias, bom dia, maging life. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all well in this beautiful Friday morning. Just wanted to come on, have another quick chat on Facebook Live, share some thoughts, and talk about some dynamite topics as we can. And because there are no limits, why not start with the big one, the big SEX. So this is going to be a fun topic, and anyone who's been following this conversation who hasn't thought that I have already lost my mind probably will now, so that's okay too. So yeah, I wanted to come on today and talk about sex and our attitudes towards sex, our beliefs around sex, cultural norms and cultural limits on sex, and discussing sex and expressing that. So I have yesterday I started the talk with a quote from a book, so I'd like to do the same today, but I'm actually going to start with 3 quotes. And the book I'm going to quote is a book that I quote so many times, and it's Conversations with God again. And this book, as I say, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's the most complete series of books on every subject that you can imagine. Like, it's got, just covers absolutely everything, and no matter what the title of that book brings up within you, if you have some sort of prejudice, this fly wants to talk about sex here as well. What prejudices you have around maybe the word God, or just try to leave that aside when we talk about this book and the source of this book. It doesn't really matter what the source is, or what you believe it is, or what you believe it is not. What is important is the information that comes through in this book, and in any book. The source is less important than the message. So if you just leave aside any thoughts that you have about God or any prejudices or the source of this book, just listen to the message and see if it's true for you. Again, doesn't necessarily, maybe you won't agree with everything I say, and that's a good thing as well. So I want to start with 3 quotes from Conversations with God about sex, and then we'll start a conversation about it. So bearing in mind that the original Conversations with God books were written, I think, maybe 20 years ago. So some of the things they talk about that was going on in the world at that time, where you'll notice in this first quote, it was different. So the first quote is, I would say, obviously I'm quoting to you from a book without context around. You need to read the whole book to really get the context, but I've picked out some quotes that are really going to challenge some beliefs. They're really going to raise some questions. So obviously remember there's context with the story, how it's flowed up until this point, but I picked out the ones that stood out to me, and there are many. So the first one is, think about it. Everything on which you place a high intrinsic value, you must insist that it comes cheaply. The lonely research scientists seeking for a cure for AIDS goes begging for money, while the woman who writes a book on 100 new ways to have sex and creates tapes and weekend seminars to go with it makes a fortune. This having it all backwards is a propensity with you, and it stems from wrong thought. The wrong thought is your idea about sex. So the next quote is, it's quite a long one. So it begins. That's giving you some thoughts firstly. So this first one, the next one now, sorry. So sex is joy, and many of you have made sex everything else but. Sex is sacred too, yes, but joy and sacredness do mix. They are in fact the same thing, and many of you think that they do not. Your attitudes about sex form a microcosm of your attitudes about life. Life should be a joy, a celebration, and it has become an experience of fear, anxiety, and not enoughness, envy, rage, and tragedy. The same can be said about sex. You have repressed sex even as you have repressed life. Rather than fully self-expression with abandon and joy, you have shamed sex, even as you have shamed life, calling it evil and wicked, rather than the highest gift and the greatest pleasure. Before you protest that you have not shamed life, look at your collective attitudes about it. 4/5 of the world's people consider life a trial, a tribulation, a time of testing, a karmic debt that must be paid, a school with harsh lessons that must be learned, and in a general and an experience to be endured while awaiting the real joy which is after death. It is a shame that so many of you think this way. Small wonder that you have applied the same shame to the very act which creates life. The energy which underscores sex is the energy which underscores life. The feeling of attraction and the intense and often urgent desire to move towards each other, to become one, is the essential dynamic of all that lives. I have built it into everything. It is inbred, inherent, inside all that is. The moral codes, religious constrictions, social taboos, and emotional conventions you have placed around sex, and by the way, around love and all of life, have made it virtually impossible for you to celebrate your being. From the beginning of time, all man has ever wanted to do is love and be loved. And from the beginning of time, man has done everything in his power to make it impossible to do that. Sex is an extraordinary expression of love. Love of another, love of self, love of life. You ought to therefore love it, and you do. You just can't tell anyone that you do. You don't dare to show how much you love it, or you'll be called a pervert. Yet this is the idea that is perverted. And so the last quote, which I love, which is the one that came to my mind straight away, which is very provocative and very apt to today's world, where there's lots of wars and things going on. So it says, again paraphrasing in the middle of a sentence, it says, "You would rather see a man dying without a whimper on the battlefield than a woman making love with a whimper in the street." So I thought that's very powerful, and it makes us think. Would we rather see a man dying in battle, killing or being killed, and not showing any weakness, than a woman making love with someone, sharing love and being like a real loving relationship, but showing that outside on the street? It's something to think about. And the prejudices that we have around these things are, there are many. Obviously we all have prejudices around these, and as it says in the book, it's from we begin. So obviously I've read those quotes now, so I always like to come back to personal experience, and I talk about things that I can talk about within my own experience. So the first thing I could say is, yesterday, it's funny that this has all come up. Yesterday, myself and Elise were in Spain, and we went to a nudist beach, which is quite funny because I never thought I would ever say those words in my life. But there is a nudist beach close to where we are, and I've passed it many times in the times I've been here. I never in my life had I thought that I would ever want to go there, or in any it was always like this kind of funny thing, I don't know. But so yesterday we decided, as always, we are working on ourselves and working on our beliefs and working on things that we believe to be true. And so yesterday we decided, okay, we'll go to this nudist beach to kind of test where we are on our journey, and where we are on our beliefs, or we're moving outside of the normal day-to-day life. So let's take ourselves out of that completely by going to this nudist beach and see what happens. So we did that, and it's quite funny. I can say we felt very comfortable. The first thing I would say, we were probably the two youngest people there. It was predominantly I would say middle-aged or older people that were there. And it was just a very natural, normal thing. We went, I went into the sea, and we walked up and down the beach. We just did what we do at the beach. It just happened to be that we were naked and everyone else was naked around us, and no one, the first thought you would have before you do this, if you've never done it, neither of us had, is like, oh, are people going to be looking at me, or is everyone going to be like comparing each other, and are they going to have you know, am I going to be walking up the beach and all these eyes and both of us found that no, everyone is the same, and everyone's just relaxing on the beach, and they're just being natural. And obviously, I would say probably the people that were there before have been there many times. There may have been some people that it was the first time, but for us it definitely was. But we felt natural. We felt it's okay, and so obviously this has led now to this video and this talk today around sexuality and sex and body shame and these sorts of things. So that, putting ourselves in that position, really opened us up to just being really open with the world, and this is who we are, this is what we are, and that's how we come into the world. So the thoughts came to me about how, like, we have to cover our body. Where does that come from? Where did that actually start? Who knows? But when we are born, we come into this world, we take our first breath, we don't come into this world with parts of our body covered. We come into this world naked, and it's a beautiful you know, entrance to the world. Sometimes it can be traumatic as well, but it's we come into this world naked. All we have is our connection to our mother with the umbilical cord, and we may have some other liquids and other things that obviously from the birthing process that are on our skin, but we come into the world naked. And in the early years of our life, a lot of times can be spent naked as well. But there comes a certain point where that society or whatever, I don't know where it has come from, maybe this conversation will bring up some reasons of where it's come from, but at some point there comes a point where we have to be covered, and the baby has to be covered. So an innocent baby has to be covered up. Why is that? Again, I don't have the answers to this. I'm just throwing out this conversation to see what comes. So and then obviously once we move forward into puberty age, then things is, all I seen was, let's talk about sex. Donna, that's a very, very funny point. So this morning, after we'd done, I'll just talk about that. After we had done, obviously went to the nudist beach yesterday, and I woke up today. Sometimes I wake up with an idea of what to talk about, and actually this morning there was some personal things that myself and Elise talked about, which details I don't need to go into because it's more personal for us, but it was about sex as well, and it's just things that we work on personally. We always work on ourselves, but it's so funny, after we had this conversation, and we actually had a healing kind of conversation where we talk very openly about negatives and positives about our sexual past, and we both had negatives and positives. But after we had done that and everything was settled, I went to the kitchen, and for some reason the line of that song came into my head, the "Let's talk about sex, baby." This so funny. So the whole line, that line was in my head, and then okay, this video has to be about that. So it's funny. But then I had to search who it was. I just knew the song, and it's probably only people of a certain age will actually know that that's a song. And it's funny, it's a band called Salt and Pepper. And I thought about that afterwards then. Salt and pepper is like just a normal day-to-day thing you have with your dinner. But sex is this thing that has to be hidden away and not talked about and covered up. So yeah, that was a funny one. That's where the title came from. You're going to sing it as well. I will not lose whatever viewers that I have by attempting to sing. I've already done that, which is not great. Pauline says confidence within yields confidence without. Absolutely, for sure. And Pauline, that's something I'm going to go into later in this video, because someone had asked me a question on Facebook, and I want to answer it later in this video, and it's around that subject. So I will definitely do that. So Donna, keep singing there. So I have kind of lost my train of thought again, but so yeah, we were around. So we had this experience yesterday where we put ourselves in a position that would be probably quite uncomfortable for a lot of people, and probably even a few months ago, it probably would have been uncomfortable for me. And yes, so when we were on this beach, no one was paying any attention to us whatsoever. They were doing their own things. So this thought around, are people going to be looking at me? Are they going to be doing this? Are they going to be doing that? It exists within us, like everything. It exists within us. It's the outside world will give us what we expect, what we think about, what we feel, what we are, and we went there quite comfortable and quite open, and that's what happened. So again, we come into this world naked. We don't have clothes. We don't have covering up. We don't need to be covered up. It's just a natural process and the beauty of the human body and life. And then we move into puberty, and then that's when things get complicated. So then we're becoming aware of ourselves as a sexual being. We come from this child who's dependent on our parents for our survival for a certain period of time, and then we gain some independence, and then we come to the point where we realize ourselves as a sexual being. We may firstly become aware of our own body and changes in our body, and these things can be quite confusing. And obviously anyone knows, if they have people like maybe teenagers or something that's going through puberty now, this time is so confusing, and our brains are going crazy, and we'll have lots of difficulties, and it's really difficult for parents to understand it because it's so long since they went through it. And I'm sure there's lots of parents could understand that, and lots of people are like children or teenagers that are going through that will understand that people don't understand them, and I don't understand what's going on with my body. So I become aware of changes in my body that are leading to me becoming a sexual being. And then there are social going up. There will be always the covering up of sexual practice and hiding it from children. This is something that's a good point that comes up in there are some indigenous societies where obviously they don't cover their body. Sex is not seen as something that should be covered up, and sex is practiced and discussed very, very openly. And there is no there's none of these taboos, there's none of these like shame or guilt around sex, and it's just a natural process of creating life that gives pleasure. And it's widely known that in these indigenous societies, sexual crime, sexual imbalances, and all of the things around the taboos and the negative connotations of sex are minimal to none in those indigenous societies. So they in some of those societies, they may openly have sex where their children or other people can see. And I'm not saying that that's the way we have to go. I'm just showing you points of where our prejudices, our biases, our beliefs around sex and negative beliefs around it lead to negative consequences and negative feelings, negative thoughts, negative manifestations in the world. So I got as far as coming to puberty and these sorts of things, and then obviously if you've grown up in the internet age, then we have the internet. I always talk about the pros and cons of the internet, and I'm sure it probably still is, but they say that the most googled word is sex or porn, or it's around sex, the most searched for term. And then obviously the internet exploded those things. There was porn before that, but then the internet exploded porn and access to porn, and then obviously how that has gone to a very, very negative, very unrealistic, very unhealthy view of sex and sexuality. And so if a teenager if let's say I could say in Ireland in general, the word talking about sex would be, again, it's seen as something dirty or something. Even the words we use about it, I talk a lot about the thoughts, words, and actions. So we use, like, we've got a dirty mind if we're thinking about sex. So it's something wrong. So it's in our it's our nature to procreate. If we didn't procreate, we cease to exist. So it's our natural, it's within us. It's something that we are, that we procreate to keep our species, so our children will go on. Yet the process of doing that, we've made it a dirty word. It's something bad, it's something evil, it's something negative. It's you have a dirty mind. So that, again, that just causes conflict. It's conflict within you, because firstly, it feels good. It feels good to have sex. Sex is one of the greatest gifts that we've been given, as it says in the book. But I feel good having sex, but it's a dirty thing. It's like something that I shouldn't feel good about. So what does that create? It creates guilt, creates imbalance, it creates negative feelings around sex. It's like a constricting of a natural urge that everyone has. So it leads to very unhealthy consequences, and again, as I said, it leads to a lot of the problems that we have around. I'm not saying these are the only causes, but it can lead to a lot of the problems of abuse, of sexual crime, of any of the negative things around sex. Are a lot of times, and again, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of times it can be around unexpressed sexual energy, and it leads to these horrible things that have plagued the world, of the child abuse and the sexual abuse, sexual crime, and then in a more kind of not as much as an overt way, it has led to the subjugation of women, and the making women an object for sex, and they have been seen as a second class or a lower class in the two genders. That's the thing that has come from that general negative thing around sex, and for women to get on in the capitalist world. There's very negative connotations around that. So it's I'm having an open conversation here, because we need to have open conversations about these things. We need to observe our words and our thoughts around anything, not just sex, everything that we think and we feel and we talk about, because those thoughts and those words create what we see in front of us. So if we enjoy sex on one hand, but it's a dirty thing that we have to hide on the other hand, there's imbalance, and it's going to cause very, very negative consequences in your world and your world around you, and then you will pass it on to other people and generations. So the secrecy and the hiding, again, coming from Ireland, there's a lot of history of that not discussing openly about sex, about desires, and if people do, it's like at the best case it's like a joke, but at the worst case it's like evil, or it's the devil, this imaginary devil evil thing. So and that leads to many of the things that have occurred that I don't need to go into too many of them, but we all know of cases of that, and that happens in all countries around the world. And there is a huge swathe of things that we don't know, that are hidden, that are kept below, and we need to start changing that culture and start to lift that shame, especially around abuse, especially around sexual crime, those things. The reasons that apart from the act, a lot of the times what happens with those is that the victims feel shame and guilt around the abuse and around the sexual attack, and they feel guilt and shame, and then they don't talk about it, or they keep it to themselves because they feel like they have done something wrong, and they take it with them through them their whole life, and then that allows it to perpetuate, and it allows that, and it holds that person in guilt for something that they in this conscious level, in this reality. They had no control over whatsoever. A child, again, I talk about on the metaphysical higher level, there is always purpose, and it's very difficult to see, for me personally as well, very difficult to see what that higher purpose is in those, like, most, I would say it's the thing that would touch us the most, especially when it's with people that are vulnerable, and children being you know, having that experience when they're young and when they're under the care of others, those early parts of our lives where we are dependent on others, and having that shattered by these events that I feel are a large part because of this secrecy, because of this holding desires and not being able to express desires, and obviously when these things are perpetuated from generation to generation, a lot of times the people that do these things were victims, or they experienced it in their childhood, and so it continues. And because in the past it was very much it had to be kept hidden even more, then it's just repressed, and it's nothing changes, and people are like held in captivity of this for their whole life. So now is the time to start talking about this openly, all of these subjects, all of these, and really looking at what are the wider causes for these things. Are these things a result of just some bad person, let's say, like they're just bad, they just one day they wake up and they're just a bad person? Or is it society, is it beliefs, is it what they were taught is good, what they were taught is bad? And people will say everyone knows intuitively what is good or what is bad, but no one actually knows what it's like for each person. No one knows the perspective, and no one acts on something that they don't feel in some way is right, or in some way that is helping them. And obviously it's very difficult to see that in the cases that I'm talking about, how they would see that. But unless we are that person, unless we've had all their life experience, all their beliefs, all of the events of their life, unless we have personally experienced those, we don't know exactly what has led to that. And again, I don't need to get in too deep to that, but we can just look at a broad, general societal attitude towards sex. And then, is it a dirty thing? Do you have a dirty mind? Is that a bad thing? Or is that a natural urge to reproduce, and a natural urge of seeking pleasure, which human nature is seeking pleasure? And I am going to practice non-violence with this fly, as I have been doing since India last year. My God, it's very difficult to practice. It's a challenge to practice non-violence when you come to some hot countries and mosquitoes and flies take a liking to you. So I'm just getting off on a little tangent here, but part of yoga teacher training, the yoga sutras, I talked about Gandhi yesterday as well. Part of that training is, one of the sutras is non-violence, and so it's non-violence in thought, non-violence in word, and non-violence in your actions. So since that time, it's more than a year, I have not consciously, deliberately killed even a mosquito or a fly. And I can tell you, sometimes it's a challenge, and just right now this little guy is challenging me for all he's worth, so apologies for getting off on that. But yeah, I think it's just time to have open conversation. Myself and Elise had a very open conversation today, and it was probably one of the most, because again, personal experience, we have a very, very open relationship, and we talk about everything. And during the course of our relationship, many things have come up, and she had just made the point today that, funnily enough, that sex was not one of the things that we talk about a lot. and maybe that was a big reason why we had this or we had that experience yesterday, and we had some conversation last night, and we had some conversation today, and it's something that I shared some things with her that I'd never shared with anyone before, and we both realized some things that we had, again, I don't need to go into details, but negative beliefs and negative experiences we've had around sex during our life, and how that's led to let's say an issue between us. Or so I think what I'm encouraging people here is just to really open the conversation and look at what is true for you again. What are your beliefs around sex, and where do they come from? So obviously, if we move then to the wider world, where I always talk about social media and these things, so like advertising is so much laced with sex, and very much on females. They use female sexuality to sell products all of the time. It's like so prevalent, and male, but more so female. And again, it's that imbalance. So you've got the porn, especially the people growing up in the internet age. You've got the porn, which gives you a hugely distorted view of sex and how sex is. So they're going to be going through their teenage year, and it's so easily accessible. It's actually not just accessible, it's nearly unavoidable. I'm sure if it's a teenager, they just can't avoid it, because it's an undercurrent in all of society, like soap operas and all of these things. And it's like it's always below the surface, and it's always the thing that causes troubles. And there's always they're having affairs, and then they're doing all, and so there's always a negative thing that has to be hidden, and it's there. And the advertising, it's used, sexuality is used so much, and it's like, again, what is that? How does that work? How does let's say sexual advertising work? Sexual advertising works on the basis of, like I've said, our natural urge is to reproduce, it's the survive at the basic level. It's the survival of our society. It's humanity. So we want to have sex, we want to procreate, to have children, and so that's a natural urge in everyone, and there's different levels of that. Obviously, it's low in some people, it's high in others. Wherever you fall in that, it doesn't really matter, but there is that natural urge. So it's like it's as natural as the urge to breathe. It's as natural as your heart beating. It is you. It's how we are still here. It's how evolution has generation after generation. So that advertising works because we have that natural urge towards sex. But what they do with advertising is they use provocative images. They use these sexual images of, a lot of times, women, that'll bring that urge within us to feel that, and then they show this image of this woman, and then this product is going to bring me that feeling, that it's going to fulfill that urge of my natural tendency to want to have sex. But what it does is create products that are taking us away from our true nature, and really separating us from what genuine love and sex is, and it's taking us away from life. It's just a complete flip. And they use our natural tendency, and they sell, I'm sure, like it said in the quote at the start, like a scientist or a doctor trying to find a disease, find the cure for a disease, will struggle to get funding, but some woman who's famous, or maybe not famous at the time, creates this sex tape and puts it out to the world, and everyone can see. She will make an absolute fortune, or a man. I say this could be either, but it does tend to be more towards the female. So they'll make a fortune. So sex is a natural urge, but it's dirty, it's bad, it's something that we shouldn't do, it's something that we shouldn't want. If we do want it, we shouldn't tell anyone. It should be behind doors. We shouldn't dress in a provocative way. Here, if we go into the wider society now, then this repressed sexual energy within people then dictates that the outward expression, people have to dress in a certain way because I feel, again, this is my opinion, it's because of all this repressed sexual energy that can't be expressed freely, that they so that I can't see I can't see the skin of another woman or another man, or I can't see them walking in a certain way, or it's just backward, and it's just and it's causing so many issues in society, and it's such a wide scale of where that takes us, and it's something that we really need to start to address. And again, all we do, we don't try and fix other people, we fix us first. And when I say fix, I don't say that anything is broken within us. That's not the right word. When I say we work on ourselves, so we work on our thoughts and our beliefs around sex and any other subject. We work around our beliefs and see how are those thoughts, words, beliefs, those actions, how are they manifesting in my life? Are they manifesting in a way that creates a healthy relationship with sex? Seeing it and appreciate it and be grateful for it, that it provides new life, and being grateful for it that it gives like great pleasure. It's a beautiful gift that you can have this pleasure with yourself and share this pleasure with another, which is a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful it's like it's on the highest level is like coming back oneness with God when two human beings come together in sexual union in a way, in that purest sense. And then obviously the society has changed those things, but look at your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions around sex and sexuality, and look at how you judge others with those beliefs, with those thoughts, with those actions, and then see what's manifested in your world. Again, have full compassion and complete understanding for there may be people that are watching this that have been on the receiving end of the most difficult and the most challenging, the most dark areas of this and the results of this. And I'd say it's not that I'm saying that you have created this consciously and this is something that you have done and you've done something wrong. It's the opposite of that. What I'm saying is that we need to change, and there are no people that can do it in a better way, and I know is the people that have actually experienced this. And I know society puts this shame around it and puts these barriers, and it's very difficult. I can't speak from personal experience about that, but I have worked with people through our work in Breathwork that have experienced that, and they have shared things with me. So again, it's not personal direct experience from me, but I've got it secondhand, but I know how difficult it can be to have that such a huge challenge in your life. But this time now is for healing, for being open, for discussing things and getting rid of the shame, because that shame is a societal thing that doesn't exist. It exists in the minds of judgmental people, and so the people that are judging that are obviously judging something within themselves. As always, they have judgments about sex, and if they are judging someone who has experienced abuse or has experienced sexual violence or these other things, then that person needs to look within themselves, whether they have been physically involved in that or not. That's not what I'm saying. It's that judgment, and that's what's wrong with the world, is we judge other people and we look outwards, we don't look in here. And once we start to observe our thoughts, observe our beliefs, find out where our beliefs are coming from, really self-work, self-inquiry, that's when things will change. That's when things will start to open, and people will be able to speak about maybe fears, worries around this subject, and and if they were in the position where before they were afraid to talk because of society, because of judgment, that it's time to encourage those people and help those people and support them in every way, so that they are supported, and they know that the community is with them, and the community is supporting them. And then this is going to be difficult for a lot of people to hear as well. Our old society is revenge, and so the people on the other end of that, the people that are perpetrating these acts, the old energy is to lock them up, is to kill them, is to do everything. Hello Sharon from Italy, how you doing? So our options is always revenge, and it's like, and I can think of many people, and it would always be in this most difficult situation, we will always think of the most horrible revenge that we can take on those people. But what those people need is healing. And I said this is going to be difficult for people to hear, and I'm going to say all of the different things. I'm not going to skirt around these things. Those people need healing. Those people need, there is, at the deepest level, there is something that has happened. There is something that has led to that. And it's not just someone wakes up one day and becomes an abusive person, or decides that I'm going to be this. No, there are beliefs, there's societies, there's events, there are things that lead to those things. And as hard as it may seem, and as judgmental as we want to be, and as vengeful, and I could say, growing up, I would have the same things. I would have thought these people need to be just wiped out, destroyed, killed. But I see this from a different point of view now, and I have worked with people who have been through this, and I have experience with people who have forgiven fully their abusers, and they have changed their life with that forgiveness, and they have moved on. And I'm not saying that it's easy. I know that is not something that is easy to take in now, but what it is it's showing you there is a possibility. There are people that have went through the most horrendous things, and they've been able to, again, when I talk about forgiveness, it's not condoning the act, it's not condoning the action, it's forgiving. It's forgiving the person that is on this highest level. You know that they're the same as you on this highest level, and this act that happened is not condoned in any way. It's not promoted. It's not encouraged. But you can forgive firstly yourself. You forgive yourself, because a lot of this judgment and guilt, like a person who's experienced that, they feel guilty. Like a child will grow with this guilt which is just completely horrendous to think. It's that they'll grow with this guilt. And I've been so blessed to have worked with some people and experienced some people where they have been able to firstly forgive themselves, then forgive the other party, without the condoning, and just release and let that go, and be able to move into their life now with their own power, having had this very dark experience, and using that in a lot of times maybe to help other people that have experienced that, and using that to be more to show their courage to speak up and speak about it, and show themselves to the world, and show that there's no shame, there's no guilt in this. There are parts of the problems is because of this closeness, this non-sharing, this need to keep it behind doors, and that's what leads to the problem, in my opinion, in the first place. Again, there are lots of causes. I'm not saying I have all of these answers worked out, but there are the suppression, the non-expression, all of those things are leading to those things. And again, I say I will talk about the difficult things, that the people on the other end of that, they need healing. They need, you can lock them up forever, or you can, if it's in a country, you may have capital punishment, or they'll be killed. But what has that changed the event? Has that healed the person who was on the other end of that? What it has done is match violence and abuse with violence and abuse. So that cycle continues. So the person that's putting the person to death may not be even part of the event, but the person that's putting this other person to death has violence and revenge and hate in their heart, and they bring that into their life. And the people, so like in some countries where they have this, they have it on TV, and it's like this circus where the person's been put to death for this or that, and then all the people that are watching are revenge and killing and abuse. So in their relationships, in their world, they're going to create more abuse, they're going to create more violence, they're going to create more people that are going to be put to death for the thing that they say they're helping, and you're going to create more victims and people that are going to be abused and are going to be experiencing that because of this just wave. It's crazy. It's time to see that doesn't work. It's like the wars you see going on in the world. They're fighting terrorism apparently by bombing people, by killing people, by taking people out of their homes, by they're losing their families, and that's going to create peace. It's just unbelievable that anyone thinks that can work. There's never been a single war in the history of humanity where violence has stopped the violence. There may be a time where ultimate violence has suppressed a people where they aren't able to fight back for a certain time, but always the result of that is more violence, more killing. It may stop for a certain time, but it always comes back, and the children of those people are going to have that violence within them, even if it's not consciously passed on by the parents. They're going to have the violence of war. And I spoke to recently when we were in Peru. There's a lady, her name is Iris, and if she watches this, I hope I would love to that she would see this so we could talk about it. But she works with her organization is I'm going to have to get this right now. So she Grandchildren of the War. So she's a German lady, and she works with grandchildren who are affected by obviously the effects of war. They may be, their grandparents were involved in the wars or back, and she works with them in the effects of guilt. So they're born a long time after war, and it's supposedly peacetime, but they are born in this mass consciousness where they have guilt. And I've worked with German people as well, and they've talked and they've shared with me that they have this very much this thing where they have to keep guarded, to keep close, because they may not have consciously been aware or physically experienced war, but their grandparents and their great-grandparents had, and that it was passed down, and it's passed with lack and holding and always been under attack and always been on guard, because you don't know when the next thing is the bomb's going to blow off, or I don't know when I'm going to have enough food to eat. And this will go, I'm just using this example with Germany, but this goes with any war torn country, and that Ireland will be a big example. We have had a long history of war and fighting, and we even have this badge of honour, the Fighting Irish. And where does that come from? Because it's come from generations, whether our younger people had been at war or not. The generations of behind them being at war has imprinted in some way in their consciousness that they will take on some of the traits. And again, like I always say, we have a choice in this. So the fact that we are born in that society where that is the reality, and we do take from that mass consciousness, and the social media and the news will affect our mass consciousness and how we feel about those things. But we always have a choice. We always can choose, and people step outside of those things that may be a mass consciousness, or like those grandchildren of the war. Those people are there are people who are able to step out of that, and once they know they have a choice, then they choose to move in another way that promotes healing, that promotes peace in their hearts, and promotes love. So I got quite a sidetrack there, but the reason for this talk today is to start an open conversation with things that are apparently Claire, how you doing? Is to start a conversation about things that are apparently taboo, and this taboo and these things that are hidden, all of these things, not just sex, any of these things. Money is another thing. It's like we have a negative relationship with money. If someone has a lot of money, they're filthy rich. If someone is, so how it talks about this in the conversations with God. So let's say someone, they want to earn money to live normal life. They want to earn money to live, but they have the belief that money is dirty or filthy, or something about money is wrong. That's going to create that imbalance in your life. It's going to create, if you continuously see money as bad, and you see it as filthy, and it's like the sex thing. It's like you have a dirty mind. These are like taboo subjects. We can't talk about them. We can't want them. We can't show that we want them, or we're dirty, or we're bad, we're negative. Look at those things. Look at those things that society has imprinted on us, those beliefs that we've picked up from other people. And money in and of itself has zero meaning. It doesn't have any meaning. Nowadays it's numbers on a computer screen, or it's a paper with some numbers on there, or it's some coins with some. That in and of itself has absolutely no meaning, the same as anything else. But we give it a meaning, we give it a story, we give it a surrounding of this, we give it something that it is not. And each one of us gives us a different thing, and how we experience money or similar things depends on the meaning we give it, depends on the stories we give it. But those stories are not real ultimately. It's just what's true for you and what belief we have taken. And again, with sex, if we put it, if it's a dirty word, if it's something that's should be hidden, if it's something that we don't talk about openly, then our relationship with sex, our relationship with other people, our relationship with ourselves, because we have this innate urge, is going to be out of alignment. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be something that's going to cause imbalance and pain and suffering and disease within our body, because we're out of alignment. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I think I've talked quite a bit about that. I don't know if any other questions have come through about that. If you want to talk about, if you have any questions around sex, and you feel like you want to ask them, or any comments or any subjects around that, start talking about it. You can type it here, or if you don't want to type it, that's fine. You can private message me, and we talk about it. Again, I'm starting a conversation, but I think I've gone into the basis of that, and I've started a question, and hopefully I've arisen some questions where you can look at yourself and look at what are your beliefs around sex, what are your thoughts around it. Is it a dirty thing, or is it a natural, loving, instinctive thing that we just have built stories around, built cultural and societal limits around? So just question that and talk about it, and I encourage everyone to talk openly, and especially with parents. I'll stay on this subject. So especially with parents, it talks about in the God, and people will be thinking my own all I do is read Conversations with God, but I say I can't recommend it enough, because it covers every single subject. And again, I'll repeat, don't get caught up with the title of the book and what your again prejudices would be around the word God. And I had the same up until a couple of years ago. I would have, if anyone had mentioned the word God to me, I would have walked the other way. So I understand that. Just look at what the message is and listen to what the message is and see, is it true for you, and don't worry about what the source is or who said it or what. If the message is positive and the message is something you can put in your life and the message is something empowering and to you and others, then look at it. So I've completely forgotten the quote now. It was something from Conversations with God. If anyone can remind me what my train of thought was there, I've completely lost it now. But there was a quote that I wanted to talk about on there. Anyway, it'll probably come back. If it didn't come, it wasn't meant to. So there was someone that had asked a question on private message, and I'm not going to. I haven't asked them do they want me to share their name or not. So I won't, and we'll just leave it that it's because the question can help anyone, the individual who is asking. It doesn't really matter. So there were some other comments, but so it came to maybe that is something that you can help or advise me and many others on. When self-doubt in ourselves surfaces, what can we do to rid ourselves of such thoughts? Thanks in advance. So self-doubt, I think we could look at it's the subject that we're talking about around sexing and keeping things closed and not expressing and sharing ourselves. I think these are a lot of things that can lead to self-doubt, because at our highest level we are all the same thing. We are all infinite creators. We are all unlimited, abundant. We can create anything we want in any way we want. The only thing that limits us is our beliefs and our culture and our society and those things. So having the awareness of that broad sweeping statement and that broad reality, for me, again, you have to find out what's true for you. It's not a belief that I have this. For me, it's a knowing, and it's a knowing that I have come to from many years of self-inquiry and many years of teachers and books and actual experiences of the divine outside of the physical, for me personally, and much more so for people that I've worked with through Breathwork, who have described things to me that just confirm over and over and over again that we are this essence, we are this source, we are this love, we are unlimited. So if we come from to life with that, and obviously I think that's the purpose of life, is waking up to that, then there can't be self-doubt. And yes, that's a simplistic way of looking at it, but if we look at it in broad terms, that we create our reality, everything we see outside of us is a reflection of us. From that point of view, we'll never have self-doubt. But we have come here with our mission, our what we do here is we come from that knowing, and then we come to this physical body, which restricts us in so many ways. And the big thing it restricts us with is not only in the physical level, we come here to forget that we are this all that is, that we are this God, we are this source, we are this infinite possibilities. So we come here for the experience of forgetting our power, forgetting what we are. So for the questioner, then self-doubt, that obviously that's where self-doubt will come from. Just normal life, where we come here for human beings as to experience growth, to experience becoming, to experience that remembering. So self-doubt will crop up, and it's always going to be a human level, and it's always going to be in our mind. So it would be good if there was specifics about what the self-doubt was about, but we can talk about it in general. That self-doubt, I feel like in every case is going to be it's going to be a thought in our mind that we can't do something, or we're not worthy, or we're not prepared, or we don't really know, we don't feel like we can do this, or we don't feel we can offer something to someone. That would be I'd say a general self-doubt. Again, if the person or anyone wants to ask about a specific self-doubt, but let's say it's generally that feeling of unpreparedness or unreadiness or not knowing what to do. So that's where the self-doubt could creep in. And the question was, what can we do to rid ourselves of such thoughts? So again, my for everything that I talk about, I always come back to observing our thoughts and our words and our actions. And obviously the questioner there says, what can we do to rid ourselves of such thoughts? So that person is obviously observing those thoughts of self-doubt. So you've taken the first step already by the fact that you're aware that you have a thought that is doubting, that is I'm not able, or I don't know. Then that's the first step. So you have that awareness. I have this thought, and we know that this is taking us in a direction where we don't want to be, because we don't want self-doubt. We want confidence. We want to be sure of ourselves, and we can't be sure of everything totally, but we want to move in the direction of positivity, and let go of this thought of doubt. So I always, when I've observed that thought, we observe something that we do not want. What we have to do is reach for a thought of what we do want. So if it's self-doubt, we can reach for a thought of confidence. So what I can do is I can search throughout my life to a point where I was confident. I'm sure everyone can find. It may take some digging, and it may take some like one-on-one work with someone like me or someone else who's very in touch with their feeling, and they do a lot of self-work. Or let's say, so I try and find, so I'm not feeling confident now in this moment, I'm feeling this self-doubt. So what I do is I search for a thought, an event, some time in my life where I felt confidence, or whatever whatever the quality or whatever the belief that I want to install. Okay, I search for a moment in my life when I was feeling confident, and I can go back there, and I go back, and I do this in meditation. I'll go back to that point of my life where I felt super confident, and then I reach for the thought around that. Why did I feel confident? What did I look like? How did I speak? Where was I? What were the thoughts in my mind at that time? How did I stand? Did I stand tall? What did it feel like? Really relive that moment, and really just closing your eyes. You can do this in a short period. So really relive that moment of confidence, or whatever emotion and belief that we're trying to bring in as the opposite of self-doubt. So we relive that, and then we really visualize it strongly. So if we're seeing visions, we'll turn the color to bright, like it's HD. I can see colors, I can see how I looked, I can see people around me, I can see nature, I can see all of these things. Turn the color up, and then I'll focus on the senses, all of the senses, and I'll listen to how did my voice sound in that confident moment. What was I saying? How was I saying? And how was my tone of voice? And then how did it feel? How did I feel in my body? Was my shoulders back? Was my head tall? How did I hold myself? Okay, this is what it felt like. The other sense, was there certain smells? Was I confident in cooking? I could smell this. I had made this dish so many times, and I was so confident that it was amazing, it was beautiful, and everyone was going to love it. So I could smell this taste. This can engender that feeling of confidence, and that's what I do personally. And this could be anything, as I said, but just for this question of self-doubt, reach for a time where you felt that, and relive it, and turn the volume up, make the colors bright, make the feelings in your body really feel them, and put yourself there, because it is known that your mind does not know the difference in the actual reality in which we see now, which we call reality, and a memory of a reality. If it's linked with emotion, and it's strongly charged with emotions, we can relive it. Our mind does not know the difference. That might sound quite weird to some people if you've not been into this type of world and these practices, but don't take my word for it. Try it and see. It's like the book says, don't take anyone's word for anything, and I always say, do not take anything that I've said as like a gospel. Put it into your experience. Try what I've said and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, then try something else. Do something else. What have you lost by trying that? But if you try these practices and it starts to work, then okay, maybe I can say that I've done these practices. I've taught people these practices, and I've observed others who live their life by these practices and others, and they get results. It happens. So that's one the one technique that you could use for that, ridding yourself. So again, the words were, how do we rid ourselves with such thoughts? That's one thing I would look at in the language and on how you say that. I would look at, not that we're getting rid of something or we're fighting something or we're pushing against something. It's that, okay, self-doubt, this concept of self-doubt, it's something we observe in ourselves as self-doubt, but we don't put a story around that. We don't do, I have self-doubt. We just look at this objectively. So there is self-doubt. This self-doubt is not something I'm going to fight against. Self-doubt is just going to be a sign of something that I do not prefer. And what will I choose to do now? I choose to follow a thought of confidence, the opposite, whatever way we want to move. I choose thoughts of confidence. I remember this time when I was, let's just use the cooking one. So I'm confident that I can make this favorite dish of mine. I make this, and this doesn't have to be, it's only the feeling of confidence. You may want confidence because you want to speak in front of millions of people or public speaking or something like this. And it doesn't mean that you have to have had the confidence of speaking in front of all these people. No, if you have like total confidence in your ability to make your favorite dish and make it in an amazing way, and you know that people love what it is, all you're looking for is that feeling of confidence, that emotion within your body, how that feels. So we reach for that time when I was so confident that it was just easy, it just flowed. I know how it felt in my hands doing these things, and I thought about the positive, confident feelings when I knew that the people around the table were going to love this dish. I can hear them saying, "Oh, this is delicious," and these things. This can be fun. This can be a really like fun thing to do, and you can do this. You can do this in a very short period. And another practice I'd like to give you, and I'm trying to remember exactly where it came from, but it was way back years and years ago, a long time when I started to get back into self-help. And I think I'm going to have to give credit to the guy who it was. I think it was Paul McKenna. I think it's Paul McKenna. He's like a hypnotist in the UK. So he talked about this type of practice. I think it's in one of his books. I can't remember. I hope always want to give credit where it is. It was a long time ago. But he talked about that process with that, like I've just described, reaching for the emotion, reaching for the feeling, see the sounds, hear the sounds, see the sights, taste the taste, and I use this in breathwork a lot. So what he did was, so you really, let's just use the cooking again. So I want to feel confident. So I'm going back to this really confident time is when I'm making my favorite dish. So I do all the things with how it looks. I smell the smells. I listen and hear how I'm talking, how I'm standing. I really become that time when I'm most confident. And the practice he did was then really intensify that as much as you possibly can. So turn the color up to like HD and make this, like if you're visualizing this in your mind, make it like the giantest, biggest wide screen that you can see with the brightest colors, with the sound, the volume turned right up so you can hear everything, and make it like 3D, make it like it's all around you, and really increase it. And then you feel that in your body, and then you increase it again. So if you've turned the color up, you double that color again, and you multiply it by 100 times the color to the brightest color you've ever seen, and you turn the volume up so you can just hear every single sound. And you do this a few times to really multiply this feeling to like the absolute extreme that you can feel all of the sight, sounds, taste, touch. Put that all within, and then when you feel that at its absolute most, you create a physical cue that will get that feeling of confidence and in your body. So you create this feeling in your body, and this how it feels, all that. It's at its strongest, and then you create a visual, or sorry, a physical cue that will link in your brain from this physical cue to that feeling. And what I think in that book, what he talked about is when you get that feeling to its absolute maximum, put your finger and your thumb together like this. So then what happens is your brain, there's little I don't know the name. I'm not very educated on the workings on the brain, but there's like connections. I think it's like synapses they're called. But so it creates, there's connections that are created, and so you create this feeling of ultimate confidence, the most confident you've ever felt in your body, and then you get it to its absolute maximum, and then you do this. So what happens, and I've done this practice, it's years ago since I've done it, but still when I do this practice, and it was, funnily enough, it was confidence that I wanted to do. Every time I do this, I relive and re-feel that feeling of confidence. And how you do that is really important, that you really live it, really see it, really feel it, really taste it, touch it, and keep doing it. And if it doesn't come strong the first time, do it again and keep doing it. And then what happens is you come to that feeling of self-doubt. When you observe that feeling of self-doubt, the first thing you do is this, and boom, instantly we have that feeling of confidence. We feel the sensations in our body, and it breaks, and it's a really powerful tool. And I think it was Paul McKenna, who's a hypnotist, one of his books that there are many others as well, but I think that's where I got that from, so I always want to give credit. You see, it's not all in Conversations with God. So I think that's a good practice for anyone that has any thought or feeling. Again, look at it. I'm not fighting against this negative thought. I'm not pushing something away from me. I'm using this as a like a signpost. Okay, I see self-doubt, so this signpost is turning this way for self-doubt, so I can choose to go with the self-doubt, or I can choose to go the other side and create confidence by visualization. And then I suppose the last thing, if someone says I can't think of a time, any time in my life that I was confident, we just have to, and I can understand it can be difficult if you've not done a lot of self-work. There might be, I cannot find any time in my whole life where I have been confident. Or in that case, if you don't work with someone one-on-one where they can bring it out, because I know I've worked with people and they've said, no, I can't think of a time where I felt that good. And when I start to work with them, we will always find a time when you felt good, you felt confident. Even in the worst cases of the worst life, there's always moments of joy, of confidence, of peace, of love, but we might have to dig to find them. So if you're not working with someone one-on-one, let's say you could, the next step is, we'll look at someone outside of us. So we'll look at someone who is confident, who we admire a lot. So we see the qualities of confidence in another. And then what we do is we observe what they do, how they do it, why they do it, when they do it. We really emulate that person who we admire, who provides that quality of confidence, or that whatever this thing that we want to bring into our life. We look to those as our influence on how we can achieve that, and do it in the same way. Put ourselves into their shoes. Like, say it's a sports person, if you're into sports, or it's like an actress or a singer, or whatever it is for you. There's someone that you really admire that has that quality that you would like to cultivate in yourself. And you can do this process as well as the other one, the personal one. But the personal one is always the most effective, the most powerful, and we always want to come from ourselves. But if we do need to go outside of ourselves, look at that person and what they do, how they do it, why they do it, and try and put ourselves into their place, and observe how they talk, and think, oh, if I was talking like that, what would I be feeling? Okay, I would be feeling confident. I feel like if it's someone like these famous people or something, like I feel like all of these people have their attention on me, and they are listening to my words, and that feels good. That makes me confident. I feel like I sing very well. It brings joy to people, so that I feel confidence in my body because I can share that. And again, this could go a negative way if you probably put yourself in their shoes, and you feel like I have nothing to offer, and I don't feel this. You have to just do it in a playful way. Like, be like a child. Be no limitations. You have to use your imagination. Your imagination is a gift, and it's unlimited. So you're only limited by your imagination, which is unlimited. So pretty good place to be. So that's some practices you can use to get over self-doubt and any thought, any negative feeling, anything that you want to. Just use those practices and try it. Again, don't take my word for it. Try it and come back and tell me what happened. And I can tell you from my personal experience, it's worked for me many times, and it's worked for many other people, and many of those people who we've just talked about that we may see as confident or successful or whatever. I'm sure a lot of them are using those techniques, and I know they do use those things as well. So I don't know how long this has gone on, probably a lot. So if anyone else would like to ask, how long has it been? I've got my laptop here today so I could actually see some questions as well. So I'm going to go back and look and see what some people have said. So Claire said Judith, so a nice Irish welcome there. And Caroline says make love not war. Absolutely, my love to you. And Sharon says she is watching from Italy. And Donna says that she's singing. So obviously the start of the quote is that Salt and Pepper song. I might put the link in the video for everyone, because some of the younger people may not have any idea where that crazy line description of this video has come from, but it's band. They may even from the 80s. I don't know, 80s or 90s, where it's a band called Salt and Pepper. But yeah, if anyone has any questions or subjects they'd like to cover, it doesn't have to be about sex. It could be about anything. We can talk about it. We can wait for a few minutes, and you can type something there if you want to ask. Don't be shy. Again, if some people message me questions, and you're free to do that, and we can talk about it there. But it's good to share. It's good to help, and your question may not just be for you. In most cases, it's not going to be just for you. Your question is going to help people, because if you have a question, others will have that question as well. And just put it out there. This is part of this open conversation about sex, about money, about life, about everything, because taboos and limitations and all these covering up of things are what causes the issues we see in the world. Express ourselves, let it go, ask questions. So I'm going to say who's there. Oh, Karen and Kenny. Oh, my old DJ buddy Kenny, how you doing? Good morning. What day are we? Oh, it's Friday. So it's interesting to think where some of you people are actually watching this. I've had some funny stories where people have messaged me telling me places where they've been watching these videos, and it's funny to me to think that I'm just setting up this phone and just sharing some things that are come through me. And again, a lot of this stuff, if I'm completely honest, I don't know where half of this stuff is coming from, but it seems to be just coming, and it's helping people, so I'm continuing to do it. Again, with the source of the book, I'm not bothered about what the source of Conversation with God book is. What I am happy about is that the content, what's in there, the message is empowering. It's helping people. It's positive. It works, and it's worked in my life. So it can work in yours if you choose. So, but yeah, there's been some interesting messages where people have been telling me where they've been listening to these videos in places like I would very much not expect. And I come from a small town back in Ireland, and I think my mission is to because of my past history, my mission is to get into a pub in my hometown. That would definitely be a funny story if someone was actually listening or watching to this in a pub at home. So who knows, that would be funny. Just a little cultural thing, because I think in Irish bars, obviously that's one of our biggest exports, apart from the fighting Irish. One of our biggest exports is pubs. It's a funny thing, I've been all over the world, and it's insane. It's just so crazy how the places where I hope you can still see me, the places where you find Irish pubs everywhere in the world. So that's our biggest export. And the funny thing is, talking about sex and being open and expressing ourselves. A lot of times for Irish people, the only place that we do express ourselves is in the pub when we've had a few drinks, and I know that was very much true for me. It took a few whiskies or a few Guinness or something to actually to open up and actually express myself. Oh, hello, my friend David McCready. Talk about sex in the bucket and spade. I'd watch that. Oh my god, the bucket and spade. Oh my god, oh, I've just realised what he's talking about. Okay, there we go. This is why this is live, and so my very, very good friend, old friend from originally from Derry, but he is now in Singapore, and we were together in Dubai. Amazing guy, very talented guy. He's just asked me to talk about sex, and he's asking me to talk about sex in, very funny, his time in there. He's just talking to me about sex in pubs or a pub. So I think what he's referring to is maybe I had some experience like that, where I'd maybe done something in a pub or something like that. I don't know. Keep her lit. Jack, how you doing, my friend? So I think he's talking about maybe an experience where I was, maybe, I honestly don't know for sure, but it could be I may have been involved in some sexual encounter in a bar in my like very distant past. I don't know. Oh my god, that's hilarious. I did ask for these open questions, so here they are. That's brilliant. Thank you, David, for reminding me. I don't exactly know about the context, but that's pure brilliance, my man. So good. So I suppose what I could talk about that from, the first thing that came to my mind is growing up and going to clubs and stuff like this, and where there were clubs in Northern Ireland. I can think of one, Clubland in Cookstown, where we would have went, and that was one place. Obviously Northern Ireland is quite a closed society, and it was like, but that was one place where people openly had sex in the club. Well, I say openly, there was dark corners where they would go, but there was places that actually happened, and I'm sure there's many people have stories, and obviously David has reminded me about something that must have happened with me. Again, completely open and honest. I can't remember exactly, but I'm sure I've had some experience there. But I remember that there was that place where people actually openly, I say openly, it's like dark space, but they would go and have sex there and open, and that was obviously seen as this dirty place. What did he say? Not that bad, your old local, the arcade, enjoying all the positive chat. So yeah, the arcade bar is one of the local pubs in my area, and yeah, it's like thinking about that. I remember that when we were growing up, there was places, and maybe you've experienced places where that happened, and that would be seen as a completely like a terrible, dirty thing. How people could do that out in public, and but it happened, and it happens I'm sure it happens in many places, and again, indigenous societies, it happens openly, and they don't have a lot of the issues that we have around sexuality and sex and these sorts of things. So it's an interesting topic. Yesterday I had a little bit of a cry on screen because someone brought up something very touching to me, and I was very happy. And it's nice to see how these reactions when something's brought up that you're kind of thrown out of your comfort zone and just going in this monologue. And it's interesting because I'm really happy to be doing these things and to show you everything. There's no editing. This is live. Everything you see, every stutter, every misword, every positive word, every good word is live. You're getting exactly what is me, what I'm sharing, and the more that we do this on the subject of sex and any other subject that we are not supposed to talk about, the better our world will come, or better the more open our society will become, the less like pain and suffering and hurt will be you know, inflicted on people needlessly. People will be able to express themselves openly and do that with others and encourage others to do that. So are you telling me that you're in the arcade now, Davey? I don't think that would be, is it? You possibly could be. So it's a Friday morning on the night, so it could be there. Not that bad. Your old local arcade, enjoying all the positive chat. So that would be very funny if you're actually telling me you're actually in the arcade bar now, after me just putting out that I would love to have one of these videos shown in the arcade bar or a pub in Dungiven, but who knows. So yeah, really good to share with you here. If as I say before I go, if anyone else has any comments that can throw me off, like my good buddy David, I love you, brother. Hope to see you very soon. As I say, we're in Spain, and I hope not, Marty. You hope that he's not in the pub now? Is that what you're hoping? Or so as I say, it's good to have open conversations, and my aim, as I say, I don't have a agenda for these videos. I don't have a script, but my not goal, it's not really a goal, but I hope that putting myself here on this video and being very open and talking about things that maybe we wouldn't talk about will encourage people in your own life to start to share a bit more openly. And these subjects that are apparently taboo or off limits, why are they taboo and off limits? Does it help? Does it help shift the problems or change the focus that we have about those things, or does it bury them further? So can you start talking more openly with your partner about sex, about maybe their sexual history, and maybe the things that they haven't felt comfortable talking about before? Have that conversation. I had this conversation today with my partner. I'm very blessed that we're having these things. And then again, with families, for parents especially, have these open conversations with your children and start to talk about sex in the early, and don't leave it to a teacher that feels awkward about it and to explain these things. No, have the open conversation, and what sex is it's not dirty. It's not something that should be hidden. Hiding it from your children from an early age, and them finding out from someone else, or even worse, they find out from the internet, or they see it in a porn or something like that. So what's Sharon saying? Oh, I love these videos, very inspiring. Thank you very much, Sharon. You've got to go. Well, enjoy Italy and enjoy your honeymoon, your anniversary trip to Italy. I hope you have an amazing time, and see you soon. Enjoy, lots of love, and say hello to your husband as well. So I'd say just have them conversations. Definitely for parents, be open, and maybe you need the conversation with your partner before you have the conversation with the children. Yes, I understand that we need to go through the things we need to go through first, but have that open conversation, and don't pass on to our children the societal limitations, and that it's a dirty word and it's something you have to hide. It's something within yourself that you need to suppress. Change that, and then your children are going to grow up expressing themselves and knowing that something within them, as natural as breath or heartbeat, which is the urge for sex, and natural, it's a normal thing. And then when they come to puberty, things will be different. They'll understand, because you'll have already talked about it. You talk, and it's not a hidden thing. Or another thing is that the parents will hide from their children that they have sex. That's another thing. I think growing up in Ireland, that would probably be a thing as well. It's like we don't talk about it. It's not a dumb thing. And it's the thing about it is we feel like we're keeping these things back from children because we feel they're not ready to understand. But we must understand that they understand, whether we tell them or not. They can feel these things, and if we tell them one thing but they can sense and feel another, like intelligent, feeling beings. They're much more connected than we are when they're young. So we feel like we're holding them back something, but what we're actually doing is creating resistance. We're creating beliefs that are negative. We're creating we're trying to like, it's not the right way of saying it, but it's like we're insulting their intelligence. Like we don't know, we feel like they don't know and they don't understand, so we need to hold this from them. But they can sense and feel all of these things, and they at some level, I say, they're much more wise, much more connected than us, because they haven't gone through the condition and the beliefs. So start openly sharing with your children as young as possible, and say that it's a natural thing, it's a normal thing, and when they become aware of their own body, it's a normal thing, it's a natural thing, it's not something you have to hide. So do that, and people start doing that, then that generation of children will change, and they will have impacts on the people around them, and then slowly, one step at a time, or one breath at a time, we're changing the world for the positive. So I hope that was an open and enlightening discussion. I think it was for me. I felt like we got over some good topics. We've talked about some things that usually people will not share openly, and as I said, what I would like is that my influence of sharing this openly will encourage some other people to do the same. If one person does it today, that's all that really matters. If no one does, again, it doesn't matter. I have done it myself today, so that's where we start. It's here. It's not outside of us. We start with here. So I think I have gone on long enough and talked about all of these things. So if anyone has any final questions, they can type them there. Otherwise, I think I will sign off here, and you can always message me, ask a question in private, and we can talk about it in private, or I can answer it like I did with the question today. I can answer it here without saying, because I would like to answer it in this way, because responding in text is very limited, very, very limited, and I can respond here in a much more fluid, again within my limitations of the grasp of language and the English language as an Irishman, but I can respond to your questions here without necessarily, if you don't want your name or whatever to be put up, that's completely fine. I understand. So we can do that. Otherwise, I'm going to head on and have some breakfast. It's quite late. It's actually 11 o'clock. I'm going to have some breakfast, and I wish you all an amazing day, and express yourself fully. There are no limits. We're only limited by our beliefs. So express today. Tell some people you love them. Tell them, express it in whatever way it needs to come from you, and let them know, and share it with them openly, and it will change. It'll change your day. It'll change their day. It'll change their life. So okay, I'm going to send all my love out to all of you. Have an amazing day, and you can get me on all the social media stuff, or my website, activatebreathwork.com. As I say, always go to the lifestyle /lifestyle. There's lots of good things, books and free video, like YouTube links, and just other suggestions on how to make your life better, activate your life, as we say. So leaving you all, have an amazing day, have an amazing weekend, and I will chat to you all very soon. Bye bye.